Hi, I'm Christiana Gaudet, and I'm here with more answers to your questions about tarot. Today's question comes from a new tarot student who's working on developing a good self-reading practice. Her question is about objectivity. She is having a hard time being objective in interpreting her own tarot readings. This is a common problem. It's one I address in my premium webinar, Personal Tarot Reading for Yourself. I think it's true, too, that it's often hard to be objective, not just when you're reading for yourself, but when you're reading for friends or family or even clients that you've had for a long time. Today, I'm going to give you a few things to make sure that you do to help you be objective in your tarot readings. The first three things I'm going to give you aren't really tarot practices, they're life practices. The first thing you want to do is recognize your own bias and your own fears. In order to stay objective, we cannot let fear be a factor in our reading process at all. And in order to negate fear, we have to acknowledge the role that fear can play when we are interpreting cards. Now, if we tend to be pessimistic people, our fears will cause us to interpret the cards in the most negative way possible. If we tend to be people who look on the bright side all the time, well, sometimes that's born of fear too. We look on the bright side because we're afraid to look at what might really happen. And so our fear and our anxieties could cause us to sugarcoat our interpretations as well. So think about your own personal bias. Are you more likely to interpret the cards in an overly negative way? Or are you more likely to sugarcoat them? If you become aware of this bias, you will have an easier time conducting the reading without that bias. Now, the second thing you want to do, you have to adopt an attitude of surrender. There are things in life about which we have no control. Things that happen where there is nothing we can do, where we have to accept and surrender. In doing this, we have to trust. We have to trust the universe. We have to trust that the universe is unfolding the way it should, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. The third thing we have to do is to be as proactive as possible with the things we can control as we work to create our lives, as we work to be co-creators with a higher power of our future, our lives. We need to be as proactive as possible. Because you know what? If you're doing everything you can, then what else are you going to worry about? You can relax and see what happens next. So if you do these three things every day, recognizing your bias and your fears, adopting an attitude of surrender, and being as proactive as you can in creating your life, you will have a much easier time being objective in your tarot reading. Now, when you go to do a reading, no matter how casual, no matter how short, you always want to conduct your reading in sacred space. Say a prayer, burn some incense, invoke your higher power, do whatever feels right for you. Ground yourself, center yourself. If you do a reading in sacred space, you will be more able and more likely to interpret the cards as a clear message from Spirit without having your bias or your fears taint the interpretation in any way. When you ask questions of the cards, it's best that your questions be as open-ended as possible. What do I need to know about whatever the situation or the concern is a much better question than, will this happen? The open-ended question really gives the universe room to work. It's also good if you can make sure that your question is of a more spiritual nature. What is my lesson from this relationship that's ending? Is a much more helpful question than, what is my ex doing right now? Now I have an exercise for you. What I want you to do is separate out your major arcana cards and put them in order, starting with the Fool. And I want you to look at each card and think about the lesson of each card when it comes to objectivity. How does the Fool maintain objectivity? How does the Magician obtain objectivity? How does the High Priestess maintain her objectivity? What can we learn from each of these characters about being objective? Thanks so much. And if you have a question about tarot, send me an email.